So today I'm joined by fellow Second Amendment Organization board member Kevin Dixie, and we are both professional trainers. We both run training classes for armed defense so that people can understand how to be better prepared to use their guns to defend themselves or others when they need to, whether that's at home or in the public space or professionally, military, law enforcement, security, things like that. And right now, today, inside of gun world, there is a lot of conversation going on about mandatory training and how some instructors lobby for it, or at least fear the lack of mandatory training being part of what the government requires for people to exercise their right to keep and bear arms in the public space. So what are we talking about? We're talking about constitutional carry or permitless carry. And as we are discussing this right now, I don't know if it happened in the last couple of minutes. I don't think it's happened yet, but sometime this week, Texas is going to vote on permitless carry, constitutional carry. Now, constitutional carry is the wave. It's what's happening right now. It's the biggest example in the Second Amendment community of regaining lost rights. It follows on the heels of the shall issue concealed carry permit law change wave that happened in the 90s and into the early 2000s. And of course, that comes after a long history of people not having their right to keep and bear arms protected at the state level. Of course, the Dick Heller decision and the McDonald decision both play into the universal right to carry a firearm for defensive purposes. And now in every state and Washington, D.C., there is a process you can go through to get a permit. Texas, if they vote today, I think would be the 20th, 21st, 22nd, somewhere in their state to go constitutional carry. The first state I could legally carry in was Vermont in 1990. When I moved there, Vermont was the first constitutional carry state. And as I said, now we have 18 others that currently do not require a permit to carry. Kevin, what do you think?
Well, it's a little weird. So I remember back in when Missouri started dancing around with carry permits, concealed carry, and things like that. In the late 90s is when we really started petitioning for it. And early 2000s, when we got it temporarily, we had to revise some things, and then we finally got it installed permanently in the early 2000s. And I remember this, Rob. I'll be very honest with you. I remember I was working at the PD at the time, and they're like, oh, you got to go through this gun training. And I'm like, big deal, right? Because I work with guns every day. It's like, what's the big deal? But that was a naive young child too, right? Being self-centered, thinking about self and what was going on. But as an adult now that has had his fair share of training and experiences and just life growth, I believe that it is unfair to tell Americans that they have to go through training before they're allowed to defend themselves. Now, I will be open and honest, and I'm pretty sure that there is some part of you that holds this, but I'm going to speak for myself. There's a part that's common in professional trainers. It's like, yeah, but I really want you to come know this stuff because I want you to be good at the thing if you have to do the thing, right? It's like, yes, I want you to come. Like, I want you to come once and twice and 3 and 4 times, and I want you to be great. I don't want you, just learning how to load it at the gun store and then thinking everything's okay, because I honestly do care about you and the information that I want you to have, for you can be better at having fun with your freedom, or just defense, or whatever it is, right? And keeping it safe around other people. I want you to come get this information. And then that's when I get into the situation where I have to control my own professional bias, and then just simply be an American. And being an American is like, you don't get to tell me that. That's your opinion. That's what you think, and that's fine. And your opinions are always valid until you try to make them law, right? And then that's when we start having an issue. So for me, I highly recommend, and it is my professional bias is always, please, people, train. But I never will agree with someone telling you you have to, that they mandate it, that you must. I believe that not only is it just something that's in bad practice, it might seem nominal to some people, but some people it's a big deal. That extra cost that comes along with that can be a deal breaker for a lot of individuals, right? So for us, yeah, we might look at 80 or 150 bucks and be like, all right, I'll send it to you tomorrow, right? And it's not a big deal. But, are you the exception to the rule? How many Americans really have it like that, right? Especially when you start thinking of the times we're in, right? With people not having jobs, a lot of people being out of work, businesses shutting down. So how many people that 80 or 100 bucks is truly a big deal. How many people have the time to wait? Because along with these laws also sometimes come the process to wait on your permit. I know I'll just use, I'll use Missouri for an example. In Missouri, you normally have to wait anywhere between 4 to 6 weeks to get the permit. Right. And it's our version of constitutional carry. I'm going to sit to the side for a second because I think it's a pretty bad one, but I'll sit it to the side for a second. You need to wait 4 to 6 weeks to get it, right? To give law enforcement time for them to process it, get it back to you and things like that. So in 4 to 6 weeks, what could happen to you? While I might be sitting as a professional saying, yes, I want you to take training, but on the other side, now you got to wait a month and a half before you have the legal ability to protect yourself. So I'm always going to kick my professional self in the behind and say that my American side, and strictly my American side, says that mandatory training for civilians to protect themselves is unnecessary and unconstitutional.
Absolutely. So I agree with you 100%. So this is the deal. There's a lot of people that don't understand that freedom comes with responsibility. And I think that is what you're getting at, right? So I look at it this way. I am vehemently opposed to the government telling me or anybody else for a whole bunch of reasons, I'm going to get into in a second, that you have to take training to exercise a civil right. However, I absolutely vehemently am dedicated to reminding gun owners that they all have an obligation to be educated and practiced in their skills. And as you said, for whatever it is they want to do. If you want to hunt, you be good at knowing the hunting rules and be good at knowing how animals look and be good at knowing where to hit animals and shooting your rifle or your shotgun or your bow or whatever. If you want to carry a gun in public space, you need to be practiced. You need to be educated about the laws and the legalities of how you do it if you want to be within that confine of being ready and then not have a harder fight in the aftermath, right? The other thing you need to, and that's one of the best things really that comes out of concealed carry classes as far as I'm concerned. The best part of all the concealed carry programs I know of that are mandated is that you're sort of forced to learn the details of the law. People talk about that at a very high level. In a lot of states, that's really the reason you're going there is they want to be able to say, look, you knew the law. You knew you couldn't carry while you were drinking. You knew you couldn't go here. You knew you couldn't go there. Or you knew you had to do this, that, or the other thing. It's not about the shooting because I am unaware of a single mandatory class in this country that requires you to draw from a holster and deliver a rapid burst of fire to a chest-sized target at 9 to 15 feet. And if that's not what you're covering, then you're not learning defensive shooting because that is the fundamental first step of if you're not ready to do that, you're not ready to do the thing that needs to be done 85+% of the time, according to the best empirical data that I'm aware of for personal defense shootings. So just carrying the gun around doesn't make you safer, but the government mandated classes also don't prepare you for the physical skills. Now, don't hear that as me saying, oh, well, therefore, Rob wants them to mandate a 5-day course where you learn all the stuff and the things and you get super good and you take a test. That's not it. And in fact, I don't see any government mandated class ever meeting what probably I would put down if I said, here's what you need to do. You need to do all these things because I'm going to include some medical stuff. I'm going to include the legal stuff. I'm going to include de-escalation. I'm going to include conflict avoidance. I'm going to include a whole bunch of stuff. And then also the gun stuff. And really the gun stuff to me is really, you have to know your limitations. So when I throw out from the holster, from concealment, rapid string of fire, 4, 5, 6 shots into a chest-sized target at 9 to 15 feet, yes, that is the bare minimum of physical, gun handling and marksmanship skill for defensive shooting. But if that's all you got, you have to know that when you're at the grocery store and something's happening 800 feet away or 80 feet away, you have no business pulling the trigger if you don't have confidence based on your training and your practice that you can hit a man-sized target at 80 feet or 100 feet or however far that shot is. So one of the great things that comes from the education, training, and range times that you learn your limitations. You learn the circumstances under which a gun could actually help you. Right? I always say, like, if you're going to pull the trigger, you need to be confident that pulling that trigger is about to make Earth better. You can't just be hoping that it might make things better. You can't be doing it out of panic, right? So there's a whole bunch of reasons. You touched on the financial obligation, the time delay, all of those things with permit carry and shall issue carry. Again, I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that this lowest common denominator training usually doesn't give everybody what they need. And here's the last thing I'll say. When you pull out your wallet, when you have that little card in your wallet that the government gave you, if you're the average person that I've met that doesn't come to classes, just the average gun owner that gets their concealed carry permit, you somehow think that that magic thing they gave you means something. And I don't care how many times all the instructors say, I tell people this is just the beginning, you have to take a real class. You have this thing from the government and it feels good and it's like, oh, okay, I accomplished the goal. I checked the box. I met the standard. Now it's real easy to put off that other class. What I've seen is in permitless carry states, people get the gun and they get the holster and they look around and they're like, ooh, I better get some training. And because there isn't some canned lowest common denominator mandatory class, they end up taking better training as a default. Arizona was the first state we really saw this in because lots of instructors were worried about Arizona. And this is the point of contention. They were worried that, oh, people aren't going to train, people aren't going to come to classes. A lot of people were selfishly worried about their businesses. Comment on that, if you will, Kevin. I know we have about 10, 12 minutes left. What do you see the same static I'm seeing online, that there are instructors who are against permitless carry because they're worried about, you know, people not training?
Yeah, you know, I think, and some of this I'm going to say is conjecture, right? I don't have proof of this. I'm reading words and I'm making assumptions. So to be fair, but it seems like there is a mixture of people that are, of instructors that are legitimately concerned, and they just want people to have the skill set. And then it seems that there is also this instructor that might really make their money from these classes. This is where their financial bread is at, right? It might be more than 50% of their revenue, right? So they're kind of looking at that like, hold on, right? And they're going into, you know, I learned in business school that every business is a narcissist by nature. It has to be, right? And in order to survive, every business. So a firearms business is a firearms business. So they are probably just more worried about the bottom line and making money and feeding their families and staying alive, and with things like that. So I believe that, well, we have to be able to set that mindset to the side. Yes, a sacrifice. I get that it sucks, right? But that's when you get to challenge yourself to grow your business, you know, train different skill levels, invest in yourself to get better so you can go help other people get better and things like that. I think that when we start looking at anybody, but especially an instructor, I tell everybody, whenever you're looking at any particular thing in life, be aware of a bias that somebody might be bringing to it, because it's kind of hard to get over your biases sometimes, right? And take it for what it is. When it comes to, I really like what you said about concealed carry classes and how people walk out with this confidence. You know, I tell people all the time, a sign that you went through a really decent learning experience in your concealed carry class is the fact that you leave too confident. I'm like, it shows me that you had a good experience, but you're a little bit too confident. I often tell my students that taking this class, and I've taught thousands of people in that discipline, I'm like, taking this class from me ultimately is a way for the government to just hold you responsible. That's all it is, right? It's just like literally a way to say, okay, now we know that you know, right? Instead of looking at it like, hey, this is a learning experience. What a lot of people do need to understand too is when it comes to shooting the gun, if you are on the fence or you're thinking about going to take it or you don't know where to stand, shooting a gun in a concealed carry course is, I mean, hell, man, we're shooting at a B-27 size target. For those who don't know what that means, it's the biggest target you can get. It's the thing that's like that big, right? And you are shooting at that target from a distance of, what is Missouri? 7 yards. I give you 20 rounds practice, 20 rounds test fire, and you just have to get 80% in the target anywhere. It doesn't matter. You can hit them in the shoulder, the thigh, the leg, the head, and they can be all over the place, right? But we are spending maybe 30 minutes to an hour, depends on how crowded the range is doing that. We're spending about 7 hours going over laws and application and things of that nature. So that's where that good fruit comes in. But still with that, we don't have, we shouldn't, I should say rather, don't have the luxury of telling people this is what you have to do. I haven't done any research, and I'll be honest with you, you got me rather curious about the states that don't have mandated training of any sort actually having more people taking, say, a level 1 class, if that's a thing. I've never thought about that. I've never looked at the numbers, but that's interesting because if the minus the concealed carry is getting people to jump into, say, basic handgun 101 or your level 1 or my level 1 class or something like that, if that's getting them to screw concealed carry, I'm going straight for this, then I'm really getting rid of any time of carrying because I want you to get up there in the classes.
I haven't said, it's hard because it's obviously it's 1,000 different instructors in every state, and there is no codification of it. We don't want codification of it. It's funny to me every time you see the monthly report comes out, right? Record number of background checks, and we all celebrate it, and then in the next post it's background checks are horrible. We got to be careful how much we're using this data, and it's so okay, let's think about this. We don't want to know who's going to classes and we don't want that report coming out, right, from a freedom and privacy standpoint. But I will tell you anecdotally that in these states, Arizona, not only the instructors that I've certified to teach my programs, but also myself, I've seen a lot of people who say, that's why I'm here. Because who has a concealed, I'll go to Arizona, 3 months after they go to constitutional carry, 6 months. Okay, so who has a concealed carry permit or who is now taking advantage of the permitless carry? And anybody in that case, who of the people that are permitless carrying, have you taken any formal classes? That's why I'm here. Like, I would get that a lot, and I hear that a lot anecdotally from other people too. Now, I've made fun of Texas a lot because Texas has this image of like Texas freedom, and yet, you know, there's all kinds of restrictions. Texas in 1987, you couldn't carry a gun. There was no way to get a permit. They were one of the benefactors of the shall issue thing. Shall issue in Texas is incredibly regimented. Like, you have to teach the LTC course. It's not open. You can't teach any. It's not like Colorado or Florida, where there's a lot of different instructors that qualify to teach the course as long as they meet certain requirements. But with the mandated course, and when I said earlier, I'm unaware of any mandated course that has what I would consider to be anywhere close to the minimum skill set requirements. The Texas LTC course is a perfect example. In fact, there's this whole drama in Texas. I don't know if you're familiar with it, where it's like you're not allowed, quote unquote, to teach people how to shoot. The shooting that's done in the LTC course is only an evaluation, and you're not supposed to teach. And I think a lot of lazy instructors use that as an excuse, like, well, sorry, I would teach you how to shoot, but that's not I'm not allowed to by the state, so I'm just going to give you this test. Oh, by the way, you failed it? Yeah, you can pay me more next week to give you an actual course in how to shoot. I think I'd rather tell them, hey, you can't take this course until you are, you know, confident, until you've taken a shooting class. If you haven't taken a shooting class, I know you were born in Texas and all that, but how about not take the evaluation, right? But that would hurt their business. So I've watched those things happening in Texas for over a decade now, 2 decades almost. So do I think that some of these, John Crump, I see is in the comments, he's been doing some investigative reporting on this. He's the one that I actually brought my attention to the fact that there were explicitly instructors down there lobbying against the permitless carry. And you know, he's named some names, he's got some videos. You can check out his work at AmmoLand and see what that's all about. But the reality is, this isn't about blacklisting a bunch of instructors that are saying, I want to protect my business. It's about the philosophy behind training. And I really fear that mandatory training, if they gave me the power tomorrow, someone shows up tomorrow and says, Rob, you get to decide. I'm going to say, no, I'm against mandatory training. But I'm also thinking that inside the gun community, we need to start being really clear about the obligation. We can't say, oh, you grew up with guns, you don't need training. You were in the military, you don't need training. Because growing up with guns with grandpa and being in the military with guns is not the same as carrying a Glock under that untucked shirt at the mall with your kids and my kids running around. There are different things. There's different mindsets, different strategies, different obviously techniques, and probably different gear as well, from what you went shooting in the hunting field with your grandfather and what you carried overseas to the thing you're going to be carrying around and doing in your hometown out in the public space. So understand there's a philosophy here about freedom. There's also a philosophy about the quality of training that comes with a government mandated course, or lack of quality is what I would talk about.
You know, I'll add to that. That's right in line with it too. Let's because I think we were both pretty clear about, hey, no, nobody should be telling you have to go do a thing. We should be able to recommend to you, though, highly that you go do a thing, right? But to add to that, it's the same way with safe. So I was part of an event a couple weeks ago where we went to an area where gun ownership is maybe not a big thing. And so we went there, and one of the things we did out of the whole day is I taught people about safe storage, right, with firearms. And we gave out 10 safes that day, right? Just gave them out. And I don't like the little proposals that come down from different organizations saying that you must lock up a gun, you have to do this and you have to do that. And I told people, yes, there are movements out there that want to tell you that you have to have this thing and you better use it in this particular way. But what I want to tell you is, I think that it's a very good idea that if you're not in control of your firearm, and it's not on your body, and you want to leave it laying on your bed, and you got kids running around, it's probably a better idea, if that's what you're going to do, to lock it in your safe. Hey, it's a really good idea. Nobody says it's illegal necessarily for you to wrap it in a T-shirt and there's a safe and toss it under your tire while you run into the baseball game. Nobody's saying that's illegal necessarily, but is that responsible, right? Wouldn't you rather the smash and grab criminal not be able to just yank a gun out of your car? So that's another idea about how we can really push responsibility without saying we don't need a law or ordinance or to make it subjective via the government in any way. So it's just part of that responsibility that we need to absorb. Carrying a gun is like carrying around the power of God, right? And it comes with responsibilities, because you can inadvertently cause somebody to lose their life, or you can be directly involved in somebody losing their life or saving a life. So with great power comes with great responsibility, and we need to know that. But however, The government, especially in the terms that we're discussing today, should have no authority, whether it's at a federal level or a state level, telling you you must do these things. Just please understand you are responsible for all things you do.
Yeah, there's a capital government must, and then there's a moral obligation must. And I would fall into that latter, right? Rights come with responsibility. I've said it a million times. I got T-shirts that say it. Go to the Second Amendment organization blog. You're going to see the Rights and Responsibilities Manifesto that I wrote several years ago. I know you've talked a lot about this, Kevin. I've got this safe right here. I jumped in the shower earlier, and theoretically, Cindy Lou, she's at school. There's nobody else is here. I could take my gun off and leave it right here on this table, but my habit is to put it inside of this quick access safe when I take the gun off. If I know I'm going to be putting it back on, whatever, it doesn't go into the big safe. It doesn't get locked up. It goes right into this box. That way, A, I have some consistency right here in the main space of the apartment. But also, if I get distracted, something else happens, who knows what, and somebody picks her up for me, she comes home from school, I don't want that gun just laying on the table. Is she going to touch it? Probably not. Has she been educated? Yeah. But she's going to be 6 in June. Why take the risk? It's easier to put it in the box. Colorado just had a mandatory safe storage bill pass. It hasn't been enacted yet, but it's going to be. It's going to be signed by the governor. It's going to be enacted. I don't think it's going to change my behavior one bit. What I fear sometimes is we do have that pushback where people say, I'm not going to stop. The government can't tell me. I'm not going to be responsible just because the government says so. And they get this weird pushback. Let's not do that. When you get constitutional carry, or if your state, I remember back in the 90s, it was a win when we got mandatory training and fees and renewals, and background checks and all that stuff. But it was a win just to be able to get the permit back then. Now we're trying to win on getting rid of the permit, getting rid of the fees, getting rid of the background check, getting rid of the wait times and all that. Same thing with safe storage. Like, we should be doing this anyway. One of the things I think is really important to remember, if we don't demonstrate responsibility, if we as a gun community do not work to reduce the negative outcomes associated with guns, there are plenty of other people out there that are going to try to legislate their version of responsibility upon us. And that's not what we want. Any final thoughts, Kevin? We're going to get out of here.
No, man. I would just say that, to the instructors that John Crump maybe put out there in his investigation piece. And once again, this isn't about bashing people upside the head or anything like that. But to the instructors that might support that, I would ask you to please, kind of revisit your internal thoughts and maybe put your professional concerns to the side for a second and really think about the growth of freedom in this country and how we're trying to push that forward. And to the individuals like me and Rob that disagree with government mandating training, I would also say, just once again, to say this: no, the government should not mandate it. No, I don't support the government mandating it. I do support us as a community, us as a culture, us as an industry, pushing responsibility. Responsibility is a big thing. I don't want to read another news headline with child shot. I also don't want to read another headline where a person with a gun loses the gunfight if they had an opportunity to win, right? So we need to push that responsibility. We absolutely need to push training, but we don't need the government telling us how to do it.
Awesome, man. Thanks. I know you got a busy afternoon ahead. I got the same thing going on. Please do go over to 2ao.org, the website, and check out the blog, see the other things we've written on this topic. And at gunrights.info, it's one of the shortest position statements you're going to find there. The Second Amendment organization does not support mandatory training. It's real simple. It's real cut and dry. Have a good day.
Gotcha. See you soon.